Welcome back to the CityChurch podcast. At CityChurch, we want to see people encounter God and become the light of Christ. Our mission is to help people know God, find freedom, discover their purpose, and make a difference. At CityChurch, we gather together, grow in community, and go to all the world. Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the message.
Welcome to our CityChurch Charlotte podcast. I'm Steve Mogg, and with me is Mark Bailey. And good morning, Mark.
What a blessing, Steve. It's a real blessing to be together again, and I'm looking forward to this new series.
It is. So we recently just finished a series on leadership in discipleship. So we were talking about becoming leaders to train others to be disciples. We're kind of shifting gears here, and it's going to be more about individuals becoming disciples themselves.
Yes.
So, and the next few episodes, we're going to be talking about discipleship, not as a program or a curriculum, but truly what it means in the way that Jesus actually formed people. So when we hear the word discipleship, what comes to mind for most people?
I think for most people, Steve, and this is what I've seen happen, is most people think that discipleship is like a class, or it's a curriculum, or it's a program, you know, and so in a sense, especially in the West, it's really the tension is between how, if you think of Jesus was born into a Middle Eastern scenario and into a different culture where discipleship was, when he says make disciples in Matthew 28, he's meaning something far different than what the West has made it. We like kind of outcomes. We like information. We're very information driven. And so for us, it's way more about, did you read the book, and did you get the download? did you watch the YouTube clip? And now, in a sense, we kind of like, well, if I've engaged with the content, or I've engaged with the information, well, then I've mastered it. But Jesus had a completely different approach to discipleship, and that's why I'm excited about this course.
Well, why do you think people tend to drift towards programs?
I think that the reason why people drift towards programs, for us in the West, I think we are way more kind of like goal-orientated. We very much kind of like, I want to be able to kind of quantify or feel like I'm making progress. And so we're very linear in our thinking, and we're very kind of like listen, how can I build? I want to measure things. I want to be able to manage things. I want to be able to look at attendance. I want to see how many people completed the course and got the certificate. You know, we think like tertiary education, but I've learned that people are messy. People are unpredictable.
Absolutely.
For me, discipleship is like, it's way more kind of like woven and integrated than kind of like the Western kind of more academic approach. Dallas Willard actually said something very valuable about discipleship. He said that discipleship is not about getting people to complete a course. He says it's about getting people to become like Christ. Completely different, right?
So this transformation doesn't happen on a schedule or when all the boxes are checked, right?
Exactly. And I think you making a very powerful distinction. You're saying transformation, not information. Transformation. I love that.
So one of the interesting things I found about your different teachings with us here at CityChurch Charlotte is the rabbi culture.
Yes.
So most modern Christians don't understand just how revolutionary Jesus' invitation really was. Why is that?
Well, see, so when we read Jesus saying, follow me, we think it was like he was saying, hey man, come for like this 3-year kind of program. It's almost like, come to college with me, and you can opt in and opt out, and you can kind of like go on this journey. But actually, when you understand the rabbi culture in Jesus's day, especially in their culture, the Jewish culture, they would have aspiring rabbis. They would have these young men that would be aspiring. They would be like, one day I want to become a rabbi, and they would study. They would learn the law. They would be very, very well learned, like Paul was actually very learned like that. But then what they would do is they would need someone that they could walk with. They would need like a master. And I think back at maybe Karate Kid.
Yes.
And think about Mr. Miyagi and how Daniel's son, and there we go. Now you're talking. Yeah, okay. And so what happened was Mr. Miyagi is like, he's bringing Daniel's son into his world. And that's really more like the rabbi culture. The rabbi culture was not, you go to a dojo and you go through a curriculum. Now, I did karate growing up, and by the grace of God, I've earned a black belt in karate after about 12 years of doing karate. So 12 years later, went through a whole course, and you got a lot of gradings, and then you kind of become that. But the truth be told is, no one really walked with me like Mr. Miyagi walked with Daniel.
No.
And so there was this sense of he integrated his training into life, and he made it more of an understanding, more of an experience.
Yes.
It was like Daniel was immersed in this development. It wasn't just like for me, I was checking into the dojo, checking out of the dojo. And so that's what rabbi culture was. Rabbi culture was not you went to a class, or you checked in, or you went to university and you wrote tests, handed in assignments. That wasn't the culture of becoming a rabbi. The culture of becoming a rabbi was you did study, and yes, you gave yourself to some of the kind of like the theory, the deep truths. But then you would walk with a rabbi, and that rabbi would then, in a sense, rub off on you, and you'd be chosen by this rabbi, and then go through kind of like a journey. We would call it apprenticeship. And we're going to talk about this in this podcast. But Jesus kind of flipped it around, because kind of like the people that Jesus chose were not really as qualified as those usual candidates, and so. So Jesus was really, really powerful in that way.
So he really broke the mold.
Yes, and I mean, so that's what happened. I mean, most rabbis would choose people, young men that have studied, they've memorized the Torah. They were very gifted. They had scripture memorized. They knew Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, those first 5 books, the Pentateuch. They knew those 5 books of the Bible off by heart. They were the most gifted. They were promising. But Jesus comes and the rabbi says, listen, a usual rabbi would say, well, now you are really gifted. Come and learn how to become like me. Jesus said, no, I'm not looking for the best and the brightest. I'm looking for the ones that have a heart, ones that will become like me, come and walk with me. Start interpreting scripture like me, start living like me, love like me, see the world like I see the world. And then once a rabbi believes that a young student would then qualify, he would say, follow me. For Jesus, after praying all night, after seeking the Father, he chose young men, and when he said, follow me, it was like he gave them the biggest opportunity, the greatest the greatest privilege. And they were not learned, it says in Acts chapter 4. They were not skilled. They were not highly gifted. They were these ordinary men, unschooled, uneducated men, but they had been with Jesus. And that's where Jesus flipped the script in a big way.
So they weren't qualified, but Jesus qualified them.
Yes. And so that's what often happens with discipleship, is people think, I first need to get qualified before I can make a disciple, before I can be used by God. And actually, no. When you spend time with Jesus, he starts qualifying. He doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And so the calling comes first, and then the outworking and the development and the growth flows from the calling.
That really shows a trust in mankind, a trust in individuals on Jesus' part.
It's amazing, because I think if I was Jesus, I would say, no, I want to be able to make sure that someone's not going to fail me. And we know that Peter failed Jesus. Peter made it, he wasn't perfect. But what I think the difference between kind of like an earthly rabbi that was just more theory-based and more becoming this to Jesus was that Jesus doesn't ask us. He says this in Matthew 28. He says, make disciples of all nations. And then he says this, and lo, I'm with you till the very end of the age. And so Jesus' the difference is he never asks us to do it without him. And so we're never alone. So it's not like we're having to train and learn to do it without him. It's actually, the training is more learning how to depend upon him and to do things with him.
Well, tell me specifically your thoughts on the Shoreline moment. That really had to be an incredible moment. What do we mean by the Shoreline?
Yes, so the Shoreline moment was exactly that Luke chapter 5 moment. That time when Jesus comes to the disciples I mean, we know Peter, James, and John, they were fishermen. And so they're engaging in their vocation. They're engaging in what their family business, and this is their trade. This is their skill. This is all they've known. And Jesus penetrates that space, and that's what's beautiful for me about discipleship. Discipleship is not God extracting you from the world and saying, "Listen, I don't want you to be salt and light wherever you are." It's actually Jesus stepping onto the shoreline, stepping into your world and saying, "I'm going to reveal myself to you and through you in your space and what you understand."
Wow.
And that's the beauty of discipleship.
Yeah.
And so the mom that's taking the child to a piano recital where there's other children and other moms, see that as the shoreline. That's the place where Jesus penetrates and says, "I want you to be fishers of men in this space." And for her, it might be that I want you to be a spiritual development, a developer spiritually, developing people spiritually. Even though you're in a space, what the disciples understood, what those fishermen understood, they understood fishing. So Jesus spoke about discipleship in the context that they understood, and in the space, in the world that they could penetrate and that they could influence. And so Jesus steps onto the shoreline and he calls them and he says, "Listen, leave your fish, leave your nets, leave your temporariness, leave the focus on the temporary, leave the focus on your ability, even leave the focus on what you're comfortable with, leave your comfort zone, and step into this adventure with me." And Jesus, in their case, they left their vocation for those. They left their vocation, but in our case, Jesus isn't saying necessarily leave your vocation. He's saying, let me teach you a higher way, a higher priority. Leave the weight and the security that you find and the comfort that you find in the temporary things of this world, and bring my eternal, my heavenly reality into those spaces. And so it was more than an invitation. It was God restoring them. It was God affirming them. It was Jesus calling them. And it's so amazing that he said to even if you think of Jesus calling the two brothers, and then Simon called Peter and his brother Andrew, and they were casting their net into the lake. And then Jesus says, "Come follow me. I'll make you fishers of men." It was while they were fishing. And in Luke chapter 5, he says, let's go a bit deeper. I'm going to teach from your life. I'm going to step into your world, into your boat, but then I'm going to go a bit deeper with you, and we're going to catch fish together. We're going to make a difference together.
Now, does Jesus still work the same way today?
That's exactly what I was thinking, Steve. It's amazing how I'm thinking of like your life, and I'm thinking of some of the men we just saw this morning at men's group. One guy saying, "Hey, he's really got a heart for those people that are displaced and that are homeless," and he's just shining the light of Jesus right there.
Yep.
And then you got fathers, and you got someone like Eddie, like loving on these children that are now going on mission, and just loving on kids, and using our gifting, using some of our education, some of our experiences. God uses ordinary people like fishermen, like you and me. God uses ordinary people that the world might overlook. People might say, "Well, I can't see how God's going to use you." I mean, we've got this one guy in our men's group that I'm like, wow, man, he is just on fire at the moment, and I'm so impacted by his life. He got baptized in our church, and I'm just seeing him. There's flames in his heart. There's fire in his eyes.
It's really, really remarkable.
It's really, really special, right? And so you see how it's real for him, but it's not just real for him. God's saying, actually, God's hands on him so that God can touch people through him. And so I think the kingdom of God, Steve, advances through ordinary people. But we are empowered with God's extraordinary life and grace and his Spirit. We are empowered by his Spirit.
Ordinary people being empowered by an extraordinary God happens throughout the Old Testament as well, and the New Testament. So what are some examples of people who they didn't feel qualified, but God qualified them?
Yes. I mean, I think the first guy I think of is Moses.
Absolutely. Moses
says to God, honestly, in Exodus chapter 3, he's like, and then in 4, he's like, "Listen, I can't do this. I I don't have.
I'm not your guy.
I'm not your guy, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think I've just had too many people, too many dads say, Lord, I'm not your guy. And God saying, no, you are my guy. You're going to be my vessel in your children's lives. Or too many business owners saying, Lord, I'm not your guy. Or too many ladies saying, actually, I can't reach out to some of those people at my workplace. But God's saying, no, you are my girl. And I'm calling you just like he did with Moses. The same with David. David was overlooked. He was this great king with great calling, with great purpose. And people were like, hey, David will never be able to be used. Think about Peter. I said earlier, Peter was impulsive, so I don't know if you struggle with, those that are watching, maybe you struggle a little bit like, I can be like Peter. But God's like, no, I can use you. Paul, the Apostle Paul was named Saul, and he had this very complicated past. This guy persecuting Christians comes from this kind of very learned background, very educated, and even politically connected. And then God calls him. I think if God could use these people, that like Isaiah 6, when God called Isaiah, he said, I'm a man of unclean lips. I'm not good enough. God says, no, it's not about your performance. It's about my calling. That changes everything.
Oh, one thing that I keep seeing here as we talk about discipleship, and one that it's not a course where you check the boxes, but it's really very personal.
Yes.
That it is a personal calling. It's not a standard one-size-fits-all calling. So really, tell me just how personal Jesus' call can be.
Right. I think if you think about, let's use IKEA furniture, for example. I think IKEA furniture is great. I've bought some stuff at IKEA. I think it's effective. But
Are you still putting it together?
That's the problem, right? And but if you walk into someone, like there's some furniture pieces in my house that's definitely not IKEA. And it's because I wanted something unique. I wanted something of greater value. I didn't just want to kind of like have something that just went through a factory.
Yes.
And kind of like it didn't have that kind of personal touch. There's something different with a handmade piece of furniture that was crafted, that has got some creativity in it, and it's got some heart in it, compared to just some IKEA piece that was just like, hey man, it's all just really about just getting the job done. And so if I was God, I think I would have just gone the IKEA route and just said, listen man, it's easy, one size fits all, let's get the job done. But God was never about just getting the job done.
No.
God was about connecting with us and knowing us and us knowing him and engaging with us. That's what God's about. God's about relationship. God's not just about outcomes and standard operating procedures, like I said on Sunday. God's about people, and he's about his relationship. And so discipleship, in my view, is way more personal. Jesus comes and he didn't just went to a hill and he shouted, anyone that's interested in a discipleship class, come and walk with me. No, he called people by name. He prayed for them, and he treated them differently because they were different. He walked with them. He ate with them. He did life with them. He traveled with them, and sometimes had to correct them. He encouraged them. He laughed with them. He cried with them. And I think the call of God is deeply personal. It's deeply devotional, but it's also very unique. And so even though we have a very corporate mission, I do believe that we have a very unique calling. And so I know systems help us and programs help, and so it's never bad to have good machinery if you are making a handmade furniture piece, But those things are tools. Those are more courses and programs, and kind of like they're a tool in the tool belt. But it's not. It's definitely not the go-to. The go-to is relationship. Just really being connected and authentically connected.
And it's all very personal.
Yeah.
So how should listeners apply this? What is the takeaway, and what are questions people might ask themselves about discipleship?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway for me today would be number one, if you are ordinary and you feel like, hey man, I don't have anything special. Number one, you're perfect
Hmm.
because God's got a plan for your life. And my one friend Peter Rasmussen always says, he says, some people are like, hey, I'm an introvert and I only like being on my computer, and actually I'm a software engineer and I don't really like spending time with people. Well, there are other software engineers that are introverts that don't like just spending, but they might want to connect with you because you understand them, and God's going to reach different people through different people. And so that's very liberating. I think another thing for me is the fact that we need to understand that it's very relational. And so ask yourself the question, Lord, how can I firstly be relationally connected to you, and how can I be relationally connected to others? And so ask yourself the question, like Jesus chose to help me to become more like him, and he put people in my life. He built relationships in my life, people that love me, care for me, want my best, people that pray for me, people that want God's best for me. Those are the people that God put in my life, and God discipled me. He developed me through people that cared about me. And so if I've received that, I should ask myself the question, who can I care for? And who can I invest in? So just as people have invested in me, I want to be able to invest in others. And I should ask myself the question, Steve, I should ask myself, what's my fisherman story? Maybe Jesus stepped into my role when I was, while I was in sports. Like for me, I'm running a lot these days. And so I'm trying to spend time with other runners because Jesus says, listen, like you made fishers of men, maybe you can make a runner that can reach men. And, you could use my hobbies and my passions and music, and you could use my love for, certain kind of books, and you can use that. And then I think I should ask myself, and we should all ask ourselves, when Jesus says to us, follow me, what does that look like for us?
Yeah.
How can we follow him? And then to pray and say, Lord, if I want to follow you and you're going to make me a fisher of men, who can I invest in like you've invested in me?
So where do you personally, and we'll wrap this up soon, is where do you most identify with the fisherman?
Oh, for me, I identify the most with the fisherman when it comes to, I think for me, I remember amongst my friendship groups, I think for me, I felt like Jesus, because I'm very relational, I'm very connected with friends, felt like Jesus found me there. And so for me, if Jesus had to find me, I'd probably like at a coffee shop somewhere, and like drinking a cup of coffee with someone and saying, hey, follow me. That would be the shoreline for me. The shoreline for me would be relationally connecting with people, drinking a good cup of coffee, eating a good meal. And it would be in that space where Jesus would say to me, well, now can you invest in someone? Can you love on someone? Can you give your life away in this space? Yes.
And so this is our new series.
Right.
We have done leadership.
Great.
Thanks for listening to our podcast. Please join us for our in-person or online celebrations at 10:30 a.m. every Sunday. City Church Charlotte is located in the Plaza Midwood neighborhood of Charlotte, North Carolina. To learn more about us, visit citychurchcharlotte.org or follow us on Facebook or YouTube. City Church Charlotte, where you're invited to encounter God and become the light of Christ.